Think it's about that time?
I think we're good.
Okay, let's get started. Greetings to everyone that's joining us this evening. Thank you very much for taking an interest in the program tonight. I want to just briefly introduce myself and then we'll move the program on. My name is John Yoder and I'm the director of Salem Environmental Education. It's a nonprofit here in Salem that provides programming, environmental education for little ones all the way up to gray-haired silverbacks like myself, the older folks. And we're proud to have this program as part of our program suite. This series is called Zoom to Sustainability. We are doing our programs now online rather than in person. And we're finding a lot of people find that more convenient, and we're having more people interested in programs from near and far, as far as Florida, I guess, tonight. So welcome those from a distance. This series Zoom to Sustainability, the first program we had last fall was on Beyond Recycling, and then the one tonight is on solar. And we have one in February that I invite you to check out our website, salemee.org. And that one is on Salem's Climate Action Plan. So it's more of a local program, but that one is in on February 6th with Patricia Farrell from the city of Salem. So we invite you to check our website sometime in January when we'll have more information and a link. So again, we're glad to have this in our second installment. So I want to start by introducing Zach, and then he'll take it from here and provide more information for you. Zach Snyder is a co-leader of Solar Oregon's environmental educational programming, involving cleanup energy campaigns, advocacy work, besides the educational programming outreach he does. He has a background in earth science, education, and Oregon's solar industry. Works to promote all forms of clean and equitable energy in communities across Oregon and the Northwest. So we're really pleased to have him and his organization present the program tonight on solar, or how to go solar. So with that, Zach Snyder, you are welcome to move on with the program.
Great. Thanks so much, John. It's really awesome to be here tonight. Really excited to share some stuff about solar with you all. And it's really great to hear about what you're doing too with Salem Environmental Education. And so glad that we can be part of this. Just excuse me while I get my slides loaded up here. John or Ari, can you guys see my slide?
Yep.
Okay, great. All right, so we are going to be going through our How to Go Solar webinar. This is a workshop that is kind of the bread and butter of what we do. So it's a great introduction to solar energy. We're gonna start off with just a brief overview of how solar works. We're gonna talk about what makes a home right for solar. Are there things that might prevent you from being able to go solar? And then we'll talk about some incentives and we'll talk about some upcoming events, and happy to go through any and all questions about solar. Obviously, this workshop is really set up to talk to you as home or business owners or someone who just is excited about sharing solar in their community. And solar takes many forms. And so if you have questions about solar in general, we're happy to go through anything, even if it's not related directly to the presentation. So this is a Zoom webinar, and you'll find on your control panel, you'll see a set of buttons at the bottom of your screen, including a Q&A button. That is where you can enter your questions. I think I have a little graphic of it in a second that I'll show you. Also, please feel free to enter in the chat and just say hello, anything you want to share. But make sure to put all questions in the Q&A box so that we can have those all organized there. As John mentioned, my name is Zach Snyder. I'm a co-lead. Ari Simmons, who's also on the line, is my other co-lead. We are the staff at Solar Oregon. Solar Oregon's been around for over 4 decades, advocating for solar energy in all forms in Oregon. And we have educational workshops, we have tours, solarized campaigns, and we just promote solar energy any way that we can. We are a member driven nonprofit, and so if anybody is joining who is a member, thank you so much for supporting us. If you're not a member, please consider it. You can join on our website, solaroregon.org. And also this link that Ari will drop in the chat is a great way to contribute to us as well. We're pretty active on social media. Thank you to Ari. And so you can also follow us on all major platforms at Solar Oregon. This particular workshop that we deliver is funded through Energy Trust of Oregon, which is an independent nonprofit that's also been around for a little while. And it serves the customers of Pacific Power, Portland General Electric, Northwest Natural, Cascade Natural Gas, and Avista. And they have great incentives and educational programs and all sorts of programs to support energy efficiency and solar. So thank you so much to Energy Trust of Oregon. And yes, this is the graphic that I was mentioning. The Q&A button is where you can put all your questions, and the chat is available for you. We're also going to use the polling function of Zoom, because I love to learn a little bit about where you all are coming from, what you're interested in. And so if you've never seen a Zoom poll before, I am going to launch our first one here. And you should have a box on your screen. And the question here is, where are you joining from? And there are a whole bunch of answers, including Salem, since we are partnering with John tonight. But I know that some folks might be joining from Portland, from other parts of the Willamette Valley, Oregon coast, Eastern Oregon, Southern Oregon, or elsewhere. So go ahead, and I'll just give a couple minutes here. And if you can click through, I'll go ahead and share the anonymized results from the poll in a second. All right, looks like we're almost there. I'll just give another second. And I'm going to go ahead and end this poll and share the results. Looks like it's about a 50-50 split almost. I think you're about right, John. Maybe like a 60-40 split, Portland, Salem, and also a couple folks from other states. So welcome. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. I also have a question that helps me to know where to focus tonight. So this second question is, what level of familiarity do you have with solar energy? That may be none at all. It may be you're kind of familiar. Maybe you've already looked into solar for your home or business, or you already have solar. So I'm just going to give another minute for this. All right, looks like we got just about the same number of respondents. So I'm going to go ahead and end this poll, and we can share this. Looks like most people have some familiarity, and also a few of you have already spoken to an installer about getting solar, but nobody has solar yet. That's great info, and I'm glad that you're all here. This is the right place. So the last poll I have here is just demographic information. This is voluntary, completely anonymous, and just helps us to know who we're serving and how to tailor our programs to meet our programmatic goals. So if you don't mind just taking a minute to fill this out, I greatly appreciate it. All right, looks like we've got most respondents. I'm gonna give just couple more seconds and then I'll close this out. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and close this out and then exit out of, exit out of my polls here. All right, great, thank you so much. And let's jump right into it. So like I mentioned, we're gonna start off with how solar works. This is a hopefully not too complex diagram of a solar system and the house that it's on and its connection to the utility grid. So you may be familiar with these solar panels. They're called photovoltaic panels because they produce electricity out of light. And say they're sitting on the roof of a home. The sun shines and light strikes the panel. It produces electricity. And the type of electricity that is produced by a solar panel is called DC electricity. And if you know the difference between DC and AC electricity, if you don't worry at all. Just know that they're different. And what you use in your home is AC electricity. And that's the kind that has a waveform. It goes back and forth. And because solar produces the other kind of electricity, DC, you need to convert that into AC. And so your system will take the electricity produced by the panels and put it through something called an inverter. You might also see microinverters where you'll have multiple of them, and they're just a little bit smaller than a big inverter. And after that's been successfully converted to AC electricity, that gets routed into your home electrical panel. And from there, that electricity mingles with the electricity that you buy from your utility company, and it all goes to power all of the lights and appliances and circuits in your home. And the great thing about solar is sometimes you can produce some excess energy. And with a special type of utility meter called a bidirectional meter, you can track when you're sending that electricity back out from your home, from your solar panels out to the utility company. And there's a great system called net metering that allows you to get credits for that electricity and offset that against electricity that you later buy from the utility. And I'm going to describe that net metering process more in greater detail. When the sun is not out at night, for example, and you want electricity, you can still get electricity from the utility grid, and it goes in through the meter. And that's why they call this a bidirectional electrical meter. So it's pretty simple. Those are the main components. Here's a quick visual of what an inverter or a microinverter looks like. So this white box on the left is an inverter that often goes in your garage next to your electrical panel, if that's where your electrical panel is in your home, and can also go outside if that's the best place for it. And this little black box in the back of these solar panels here on the right, that's a microinverter, and it does the exact same thing as the inverter. Solar is extremely versatile, and it can be placed in many places. It's really common and popular to put it on top of your roof. And that's because your roof is already just sitting there, not doing a whole lot except keeping the rain out, and putting panels on top of it is a great way to use that space. If you have extra space, land, and you want to put the solar somewhere else, not on your roof, for any reason, you can also do that. And there may be a slight extra cost for a ground mount that is incurred by trenching. You have to run a wire from the ground mount back to your electrical panel, but it's also a great option in many cases. So as I mentioned, net metering is a system that allows you to get credits for the solar electricity that you produce that you don't use. So excuse the graphs here, I'll just describe them quickly. On the left is a graph. You can see on the vertical axis, that's the amount of electricity. So the higher the bar, the more electricity. And the orange bar here in a summer month, say, as an example, since we have very sunny summer months, the orange bar is how much electricity your solar system produces. And the blue bar is how much electricity you consume over the course of that month. And so you can see during the summer, you might expect that your solar system is producing more electricity than you are consuming. And it doesn't matter at what time of day, because you get the credits no matter when it's produced. And so this green arrow here represents the amount of credit that you get through net metering based on that excess generation of your solar system. On the right, this is a typical winter month where you might have less solar production than the amount of electricity that you consume in that month. And this red arrow represents the amount of excess that you have to purchase. And with net metering, that system allows you to bank these credits from the summer months and use them in the cloudier winter months. And in that way, you can offset all of your electrical usage with your solar system, which is really great. And it makes it much more financially incentivized to go solar. So that's a basic overview of how a solar system works, what net metering is. When you are thinking about putting solar on your own home or your own business, you might run into questions of, is my roof suitable? Do I have the right electrical equipment in my home to be able to support a solar system? So in this section, I'm going to walk you through some things that you can use to evaluate your home or business. So the first thing I want to talk about is how a solar system is sized. And you may have a massive roof, and you may find that no solar installation company wants to sell you a solar system that fills up your entire roof. And typically the reason why is because as I mentioned in my overview of net metering, you get credits when you produce excess electricity. Those credits don't roll over from year to year. They do from month to month, but not from year to year. The net metering year starts in March in Oregon and ends at the end of February. And the rest of your excess credits get donated to low-income ratepayers through the utility. And so you'll want your system to produce exactly as much energy as you expect to consume throughout the entire year and not any more. Because the value of that electricity, you won't be able to see the return on that if you install a larger system. Other factors affecting the size of a system include space. If you have too little space, you may find that you can't offset all of your energy, but you can offset a portion, which still has a lot of benefit in many cases. Also, your budget, you may want a smaller system because that's how much money you have to pay for it at that moment. And in the future, you can potentially add more solar panels onto your roof when you have the money for it. And finally, some folks for some reason, don't like solar panels and the way they look on the front of their home, and they only like to put it on the back of their home. I personally think that solar panels are beautiful everywhere, but obviously I'm biased as well. You don't have to worry too much about the metrics of how you size a solar system, but that is measured in something called kilowatts. And just a fact for your reference, when you're talking to a contractor or looking at your own system, the Oregon average system size is 6 kilowatts. So in addition to space considerations, an important factor that determines whether your home is suitable is how much sunlight actually reaches where you're going to put the panels. So assuming you're going to put them on the roof, we have a couple diagrams here showing what parts of your roof will be best for solar. So because we're in the northern hemisphere, the sun is therefore in the southern sky, and south-facing roofs are the best for solar. North-facing roofs typically don't get enough sun to be able to install solar meaningfully. And so you typically don't see solar installed on the northern roofs. However, east and west-facing roofs are typically also great for solar installations, even in the cloudy parts of Oregon. Beyond how much sunlight you receive, another factor that can determine whether solar is a good fit for your home is the material of your roof. So many roof types exist. Asphalt shingle is extremely common, so is standing seam metal. Pretty much every roof type you can install solar on. There are very few roof types where it's very difficult to. It's still possible to install solar on pretty much any roof type. But with asphalt shingle, standing seam, you don't have to worry about that at all. There are great attachments there. Regardless of your roof type, you'll want to make sure that you have enough roof life left when you install. With metal roofs that last 50 plus years, that's usually less of a consideration. So metal really is an ideal rooftop for solar. Asphalt shingle, even though it's also great, it has a shorter lifespan. And so you need at the minimum 10 years of life left on your roof to even qualify for some of the main incentives that we have in the state. And we recommend that you have the maximum amount of roof lifespan left when you install solar. And the reason is that when you re-roof, and re-roofing is a necessity, it's not something that you can meaningfully put off. When you have solar, you will need to remove the solar panels, then re-roof, then put the solar panels back on. And because solar panels need to be installed by an electrician in Oregon, that can be somewhat expensive. It can cost several $1,000s. There are solar companies that offer that as a service, but you want to make sure that you factor in that cost. And finally, your roof structure can make a difference when you're going solar. If you look in your roof and you see, in your attic, and you see a lot of cross beams, especially if you see, if you can make out in this image, these metal rectangular attachments between the beams. This is called trusses when you have these support beams. And if you see these metal rectangular fixtures, that usually means that they're prefabricated trusses. You should have no problem whatsoever going solar, and your roof is perfect for it. If you do not see any cross beams and you just see these rafters, your roof likely is still fine for solar. But if your roof span is wide enough, you may need some structural reinforcements, especially depending on your jurisdiction. Salem is a little bit less restrictive. If you're in Portland, Portland has extremely stringent building codes and requires just a little bit more structural reinforcement in some cases. That is oftentimes not cost prohibitive. It's just something to take into account. In addition, you may need to hire an engineer, which your solar company can take care of that, but that can add several $100s of cost as well. So hopefully that gives you a little toolkit that you can use to evaluate your own site. I am going to talk a little bit now about solar incentives available. And again, remember that if you have questions at any point, you can put them in the Q&A box and we'll just get to those at the end. So the great news is that especially over the past 10 years, but throughout the lifetime of solar as an industry, prices have dropped precipitously. They are now just a fraction of what they were 10 years ago. And though they are falling less quickly, and the supply chain issues that arose during COVID actually saw a brief uptick in prices, they are projected to continue to decline at a slow and steady rate. And so solar in general is affordable. On top of that, there are great incentives to take into consideration. There are federal, state, and other local incentives that I'm going to talk about that you have access to here in Oregon. Anywhere in the country, you can take advantage of the solar investment tax credit, which is the box on the left here. That is a tax, dollar for dollar tax credit, 26% of the value of the system. And that means that you get that money back when you file taxes the following year, as long as you have the tax liability to offset. The second incentive I'm going to talk about is the statewide incentive. This is a solar and energy storage rebate. And so this is something that a solar installer will apply for and apply to your the cost of your system before you actually pay for it. So it's an upfront immediate rebate. If you are income qualified, then your incentive can be up to $5,000. If you're not, if you don't qualify for certain income categories, you can get up to $2,500. And that includes money also for a battery, which is a great thing to consider if you are interested in using your power when the grid goes down. And the final incentive I'm going to talk about is Energy Trust of Oregon. I know it says $900 here. That's if you are in Pacific Power territory. If you're in Portland General Electric territory, that's up to $1,200. That figure does move slightly over time, but you can always talk to a contractor and see where it's at any given moment. Another great incentive, Energy Trust of Oregon, that incentive I just mentioned, $1,200, is their standard incentive. They also have an income qualified incentive called Solar Within Reach, which really helps to increase access to solar. And in Pacific Power territory, it's up to $4,200. It is based on the size of the system at 90 cents per watt, up to $4,200 in Pacific Power, up to $8,400 in PGE. And to give you just a quick reference to see if you might qualify, a household of four, if they earn less than $99,934, is eligible for Solar Within Reach. So those are the main incentives that are available. If you have a business that you're interested in getting solar for, there are also depreciation incentives, which are significant, which I won't cover right now, but feel free to ask. This slide is often people's favorite slide in the presentation. I have a sample budget here. I'm going to walk you through some numbers. Everybody wants to know, how much does a solar system cost? The problem with answering that, even though I'm going to do that with this chart, is that it really depends on your site. It depends how big of a system you're getting. It It depends whether you need a roof replacement, because that can be an expensive hurdle. It depends if you need any kind of electrical upgrade or engineering to make sure your roof is right. What I'm going to show you is a basic cost breakdown, and I have another slide for Pacific Power. We're going to start with PGE. This is for a 6 kilowatt system. Again, that's the Oregon average. And the total eligible project cost is ballpark $20,000 before incentives for a 6 kilowatt system. And you can see the left column here. I'm going to walk through based on the incentives and break that down. The middle column, this is the actual figures for if you're not income qualified. And for low and moderate income customers, I'm going to walk through that scenario on the right column. So you start at $20,000 either way. The Energy Trust incentive for PGE customers is up to $1,200 if you're not income qualified, or $8,400 if you are, meaning that the net cost is either $18,800 or $11,600, respectively. On top of that, you'll be able to access the state rebate that I mentioned. So that's either $2,500 or $5,000 for income qualified customers, meaning that the out-of-pocket cost to you would be either $16,300 if you're not income qualified, or $6,600 if you are. On top of that, after you pay for the system, when you file your taxes the next year, as long as you have the tax liability, you can take advantage of the 26% federal investment tax credit, which would be a little over $4,000 for non-income qualified and almost $2,000 for income qualified, leaving our final costs after you take advantage of that last incentive at about $12,000 and about $5,000. So that's what it is in PGE. I'm going to quickly run through the same scenario, but this is a new chart for Pacific Power customers. You'll see the same starting cost, $20,000. You'll see that the Energy Trust incentive is at $900 or $4,200 respectively. The state rebate is the same. Doesn't matter if you're in PGE or Pacific, it's the same value. And the federal tax credit is the same value. And so in the end, what that means is a system might cost just north of $12,000 in PAC territory for non-income qualified, and just about $8,000 for income qualified. Again, these are very ballpark figures, but I know that folks are insatiably curious about the cost of solar. So hopefully this gives you a rough idea. I'm gonna finish off here with an overview of some suggestions, how we suggest you get started if you're interested in exploring solar. So Energy Trust of Oregon provides, like I mentioned, many great resources for folks looking at all sorts of energy efficiency and solar technologies for their sites, whether homes or businesses. And one of the great services they provide is by ranking solar contractors in a system that they call their trade allies. Trade allies of Energy Trust of Oregon are rigorously qualified. You know that they are going to be reputable. They also have a star rating out of 3 stars. There's a directory on energytrust.org, and you can search, find a contractor, and you can find all the folks who serve your area. To make that process even easier, Energy Trust of Oregon has a great tool, and we'll drop a link in the chat, energytrust.org/solar bid. And Ari, sorry, you're gonna have to remember if there's a dash between the solar and the bid. There may be. But this tool is very easy. It's an online form. It takes less than 5 minutes to fill it out, and you'll get contacted by 3 reputable contractors in your area, and they will provide you with a free quote. So you'll be able to compare 3 offers from folks you know will do a good job. And when you are finally ready for installation, it's a turnkey service. There's nothing you have to do in terms of permitting or in terms of inspections or interconnection with the utility. That's all handled by the contractor. They might work for a few weeks getting those permits, maybe even a month or so, depending on their timeline. But once they get you scheduled for installation, it's typically just 1 or 2 days for a residential installation. And then you just have to wait for your interconnection notice from the utility, and you can begin producing power as soon as you receive that. So that's it's a very easy process. I hope you are considering solar. I hope you're curious about it. If you are not in a place where you're going to do that immediately, you can still talk about it to folks, and that can be a great way to help get solar installed in your community. Before I open up to Q&A, I'm just gonna plug a couple of events that we have coming up at Solar Oregon that you are all warmly invited to. They're all free events. Tomorrow evening at 6 p.m., we have our annual meeting and fundraiser. And we're gonna have this is the end of year celebration of what we do. We're gonna talk about all of our programs and what we're looking forward to next year. We're gonna have 4 great guest speakers from some of our partner nonprofits. And we're gonna have an auction. And so it's a great way to support the work that we do. You'll see the bit.ly link, bit.ly/support, capital S, capital O for Solar Oregon. And Ari will put that in the chat. Oh, looks like I may have broken my slides here. Let me. Not sure how to get back into presentation mode, but I'll just finish off quickly here. These are the auction items we have. Something for everybody. A chance to test drive an electric vehicle. A couple of getaways. One in the San Juan Islands, one by Mount Hood. A couple of restaurant items, tickets to the Blazers. So really great stuff. Here's the link to the auction. Please feel free to check it out. And if you want to, please bid. It does support us. And also on Monday, December 20th, we are featuring a webinar about the city of Pendleton, Oregon, for a couple of reasons. Pendleton's been a real leader as a small rural city in Oregon. That has installed a ton of solar on public buildings, on residential homes. They have weatherization programs. They have other innovative energy projects that they've completed. And so we'll be talking to Bob Patterson, who's their public works director, who's helped to lead a lot of these projects. And he's also going to be Solar Oregon's board president for 2022, which we're really excited about. The bit.ly link is down there, bit.ly/Pendleton Solar. And that's it. So my email is here, zach.s@solaroregon.org. I'm gonna open it up to chat, but please feel free to get in touch through email too after the event. And I see we've got a number of questions, which is I'm always really excited about. Stop my chat or stop my share screen. And I'll just dive right into it. And I'm gonna try to answer all questions. And so feel free to continue to add into the Q&A. And again, you can ask questions about other aspects of solar too, besides what we talked about tonight. So first question we have here, incentives for community serving nonprofit, are there incentives for a community serving nonprofit tax savings won't help? That's a great question from Frank. There are incentives. If you are in Pacific Power or PGE, Portland General Electric Territory, Energy Trust of Oregon has incentives that I would love to be able to remember the name of it right now, but it is specifically for nonprofits and community organizations, and it can be significant. So I'm happy to track that down and try to find that for you. If you would like, please send me an email, zach@solaroregon.org, and I'll make sure that I get you that info. Tim Johnson, you're asking how to choose my PV panels from the large variety of PV manufacturers and Thank you for asking good questions. I'm excited about some of the questions you got in the chat here in the Q&A. Yeah, so typically when you work with a contractor, some contractors will be able to install any module that you want, and there are a number of types of modules. Most contractors will have their standard panels that they offer, and many contractors, it will be the same brands that they will offer between contractors, and they may have 2 or 3 different types for you to choose from. I'm Solar Oregon, we're brand agnostic, and we don't recommend one manufacturer over the other. However, you can choose based on recommendations from a contractor, which are typically just fine. You can also take a look at tools like the Solar Scorecard, which is produced by the Silicon Valley Toxics Coalition. And that is helpful, not in terms of the performance of the panel, but it'll tell you a little bit about the social and environmental performance of the company that produces the panel. If you care about that, some people prefer modules that are made in America. There are options there. Some folks don't care so much about that, and there are plenty of options from other areas of the world as well. There are, I would say that most panels are relatively similar, and as you talk to contractors, you'll see that you'll probably run into the usual suspects after a while. I just saw a question in the chat: how do we get access to the Solar Scorecard? I will, after I'm done running through these questions, remind me, and I'll get the link for you before I jump off here. Nikki asked, could you speak to different types of solar, for example, PV panels versus solar film on metal roofs, benefits, drawbacks, and costs? Yeah, absolutely. So the standard modules that pretty much any contractor will sell you are silicon modules. And that is the kind of original solar photovoltaic technology. There are also a host of other technologies called thin film solar technologies, and they are based on a variety of technologies. So silicon, which is the standard, works in the same way as a computer chip. You have transistors essentially built into a silicon chip that are kind of stacked on top of each other. They create a voltage. Thin film is created sometimes with nanotechnologies, and one of the reasons why they became popular in the industry is because they're patentable. You can create a bunch of different technologies, and a company can go and patent it and make a bunch of money with it. The reason silicon modules are sold predominantly in the market today is because they're economically and just technically the gold standard right now, and that may change in the future. The hype around things like solar film and other thin films really came around a big push by the United States Department of Energy, especially during the Sunshot program, when they were really trying to promote those technologies as a way to stimulate American manufacturing after China had manipulated the solar market to destroy American manufacturing through undercutting prices. So that's kind of the reason why you may have heard about them. In general, you'll find silicon modules are the way to go. Is there an income cap on the solar investment tax credit from the federal government? That's a great question. No, I'm not a tax expert, so that's the asterisk there, is that I can talk all day long about the ITC, but at the end of the day, it has nothing to do with the solar industry. It has everything to do with tax law. And so but I do not believe that the ITC has an income cap. So you should be able to take advantage of it as long as you have tax liability. I'm gonna go through all these questions and first get to folks whose questions I haven't answered at all, and then I'll come back to folks who've already asked a question. So I think the next here is Jane M. How much does it cost to add a connection for an electric car? These are really great questions. So please, thank you, and please continue to ask more. I'm not an expert in electric vehicle charging, but the basics here are that there are level 1 chargers is you just plug it into the wall. Level 2 chargers is you have a separate box that you'll install. An electrician needs to install that, and that's typically in your garage, and it's 220 volt. And that allows you, if you just plug into the wall, level 1, that's usually takes about 8 hours to charge a car. With level 2, that can be down to 2 or 3 hours. So it's a significant improvement. That box, installing that, I believe, is a matter of a couple $1,000s. If you want great information about the price of electric charging, I would suggest reaching out to Fourth Mobility. And I will drop that into the chat. Fourth Mobility, if you Google them, they're based in Portland, Oregon, and they have tons of webinars on charging, and they can definitely answer your questions too. Travis, I am designing a new house and would like to have a lower slope, 212 pitch on a south-facing roof. Is there much loss in efficiency by not using the higher slope recommended? That's a great question as well. The slope of the roof, pretty much, it does not have a huge impact on a south-facing roof. It does have a big impact on an east or west-facing roof. And that's because east and west-facing roofs receive sunlight for less of the day, and the higher the slope, the less sunlight they receive. And so if you wanted to go for the scientifically ideal slope, it would be I believe around 32 degrees ish on a south-facing roof. However, if you had a much higher slope or lower slope on south-facing, you should be fine. Andy, what does end of life look like for solar panels and components? Does the whole system need to be replaced, or is it usually individual components that fail? This is a great question. In terms of end of life, solar modules should be recycled. I know that the main recycler in Portland, I'm not familiar with the recycling companies, and I'm just talking about, standard recycling companies in Salem area. But there is a solar recycling option I know in Portland, you might be able to access in Salem. Sometimes a solar distribution company, the company that sells modules to solar installation contractors, sometimes they will manage the recycling. So I know that CED Green Tech does that, for example, and they supply many of the contractors across the state. And so you may be able to work with your contractor to coordinate recycling, even if there isn't a local solution for you. And does the whole system need to be replaced, or is it usually individual components that fail? So in terms of maintenance, solar modules are great because they have no moving parts. And it is extremely rare that a solar module will fail. If it does, it's usually during the manufacturing process, so it will never be shipped out the door. And if it does fail on the roof, it's usually because like a tree fell on it or something. The component that might fail, you'll find, is the inverter. And inverters are great technology, but if you have a choice between a standard 10-year warranty and an extended 25-year warranty on an inverter, just pay the extra couple $100 and get that extended warranty. It might be worth it. Brian, are Oregonians allowed to have personal batteries added to solar generating systems if for use when utility grid goes down? My neighbor told me that we were not allowed to do that. Your neighbor, if you enjoy gloating, is incorrect. Batteries like Tesla Powerwall, so lithium batteries, lead acid batteries, there's a number of different providers of batteries. So you have your options laid out in front of you. Solar contractors will be able to tell you what those options are, and you can absolutely tie solar with storage. And in fact, that is, it's like peanut butter and jelly. They just work really well together because solar can charge your batteries, allowing your batteries to serve you longer when the grid goes down. And just to clear up any misconception for anybody who may be watching, your solar system doesn't allow you to use energy when the grid goes down unless you have a battery. And so putting them together just makes sense for a lot of reasons. One issue you might find is that batteries can be cost prohibitive, and there's few options in Oregon to monetize the value of a battery. Hopefully that will change in the future. I wouldn't count on it in the very near term, but there are incentives. For example, the state incentive can apply to a battery, and batteries, I would say, are recommended for folks who are kind of at the end of the line on the utility grid and experience a lot of outages frequently, or who have critical needs like a hospital, but a hospital might have a diesel generator too, or any kind of medical storage for insulin in the home or something like that. I learned that there are bidirectional batteries to use EV to power your home. What are the pros/cons of waiting for these newer units? I have never had a set of questions that tells me I have a more informed audience. It's really great to cover some of these questions. What this question is referring to is that there is a technical movement toward something called vehicle to grid, which means that your electric vehicle that has a lithium battery that's kind of equivalent to a home battery, like a lithium battery for your home, that you can, during an outage, technically you could theoretically use your electric vehicle battery to power your home. And that is technically totally possible. And in certain markets, I believe Europe, parts of Europe are a little bit farther ahead than the US in that. Some electric vehicle manufacturers are resisting that, especially in the United States, I believe. And so it is not possible without legal modification to your car at this point to do that for your home in the United States, though that may be possible in the future. In terms of pros and cons of waiting for the newer units, the issue is regulatory, it's not technical. And so in terms of the wait, I would say it's highly unpredictable because it really depends on the regulatory landscape. Again, Fourth Mobility is a great resource for information on all electric vehicle topics. Question here from Anonymous. I have responded to solar panel install companies on Facebook ads. I've opened a can of worms. They have my email and phone number, and I've been getting flooded with sales people from all over. How do I weed out the good from the bad? This is as bad as all the Medicare plan companies that once they get your contact info, they hound you with calls. I am so sorry to hear that. That is not a pleasant experience. You're probably not being hounded by a local contractor. And I say that because local contractors and even national scale contractors, the people who install solar, they typically rely on referrals from most of their business, and they don't invest a whole lot in those kinds of market tactics. There are a number of companies who are called lead generation companies. And I suspect that that's who you're being contacted by. And that type of company doesn't actually install solar. They generate lists of people who are indicated online somewhere, maybe, that they are interested in solar. And then they sell those lists for a fee to actual solar companies. Having worked for a solar company previously, I can tell you that solar companies don't even really like those lists because they're usually not that effective. And it's probably because folks like yourself are being harassed by these lead generation companies. So I'm very sorry to hear that. I would say I wish I could help give you advice personally, but I think your story is a good cautionary tale to anybody to maybe not respond to Facebook ads about solar, and instead Energy Trust of Oregon, for example, using their tool. You will never run into that problem from using their tool. So again, that is the energytrust.org solar bid, and if you just Google Energy Trust solar bid tool, you'll also find that there. And then you'll only get contacted by reputable contractors. Ken, how much of a problem is theft? That's a good question. I have never heard of theft, and I've never heard of a case of vandalism on a component of a solar system. In terms of someone like getting on your roof and stealing panels, obviously it may vary dramatically based on where you are, but I don't think that I've never heard of that as an issue. I think that disassembling a solar system is not as easy as maybe other types of theft. So maybe that would dissuade people there. But I would be interested to hear if anybody has heard of any kind of theft or vandalism. And then I think I've answered the rest of the questions here from folks who've already asked one. So I'm going to go back to the top and start up there. And just a quick note, it's 8 p.m. I'm going to keep rolling as long as you've got questions. So feel free to put them in. At a certain point, maybe at 8:10, I will cut it off and I'll answer any other questions through email. But going to keep going here in the meantime. Tim, you ask, how important are PV warranties? It seems that some manufacturers cover parts and labor, while others only cover parts. Some manufacturers appear to charge a premium to get full warranty coverage. How to choose the best manufacturer's warranty? This is also a great question. In terms of parts, we'll start there. Solar modules, the standard is 25 years. Solar module lifetime, typically longer than 25 years, but the warranty is 25 years standard. And I think it's rarely used. It might be used for, don't quote me on this, hail damage might be the most common thing. If you are curious about that, maybe also ask your contractor whether it covers something like hail damage. Some contractors will cover labor. That varies from contractor to contractor. So that's a great question to ask when you get a quote from multiple companies, who provides a labor warranty and who doesn't. Some contractors will even provide a warranty on production. So if your system produces less than, say, whatever their terms are, maybe 90% of what they projected, they will compensate you for the lack of production. Usually that warranty looks good, but it's almost never used because solar is typically highly reliable, and there's no real incentive for a contractor to over estimate how much you're going to need. But that does exist sometimes. In terms of how to choose the best manufacturer's warranty, I wish I were a better expert, but I would say get the 25-year warranty on both the module and the inverter. If you have access to a warranty on labor, all the better. And probably a good idea. Frank, does the solar company arrange for an engineer to do assessment fixes for any structural roof needs? So I had mentioned the difference between trusses and rafters, and if you have rafters and your span is too wide, you may need an engineer to take a look at it. And Frank, I think your question is about that. And yes, your solar company will do that assessment. They'll know if you need an engineer, and they'll typically have an engineer that they work with, and they will wrap the cost of the engineer into the overall cost of the solar system. So you'll be able to look at one unified quote. If your company can't do that, maybe get another quote. Gina, how much value does a solar system typically add to the value of one's home? That's a great question. Home valuation. So in Oregon, there is a law that the solar is exempt from the taxation value, which is great, which means your home won't be taxed just because you made this improvement to it by going solar. In terms of the market value of your home, that's a more complex question. There have been studies, especially where there is higher market penetration, like in Southern California, that have shown that home price does increase and does correlate with the value of a solar system. How much, I think is really hard to quantify because the only reliable answer would be a statistical one. I think that it kind of depends on your realtor. Some realtors are totally unaware of solar and its value. And some realtors may be aware of how to sell the value of a solar system, because it means that the next homeowner will not be paying for those utility costs, which is great. So it should be a higher home value. I wish there was a clear-cut answer to your question, but that's the best I can give, unfortunately. Kathy, do you know if there will be further incentives with the Biden Build Back Better? Great question. If it passes the Senate. So Biden had an infrastructure package that included money for transmission, electrical utilities, electric vehicles, and other infrastructure, roads and bridges and things like that. And that's what passed. It did not include any solar incentives, and the solar incentives that are under consideration are in this second Build Back Better bill, and they are tax incentives. So right now I mentioned that the federal investment tax credit is at 26%. Historically, that's been at 30%, and it went down recently to 26%. And it was scheduled to go away entirely for residential and go to just 10% for commercial, unless Congress re-ups it. And that's what this bill would do. And it would take it back to 30% and also add a few new rules about broadening the scope of the incentive a little bit. And so that's what's in that bill. It really depends. I think it's a hard shot through the Senate. I think it's because of Joe Manchin. And so it really depends on what kind of deal can be struck there. So we'll wait and see. Maybe pick up that phone. Oh, did I just click out the wrong question? There we go. Okay. Could you talk about, Nikki, could you talk about different kinds of benefits, if any, benefits or problems, if any, and costs of battery storage? Gladly. I talk about it all the time. I sing the energy storage gospel. Batteries are so important, maybe not to every individual right now in the market, but increasingly so. And a battery, again, is the only tool besides a backup generator that allows you to use power when the grid goes down. This is especially important for people who experience frequent outages, who maybe are farther outside of urban centers. Also for, as I mentioned, things like hospitals. But Oregon is in a subduction zone. We have an expectation that the Willamette Valley might go out of power for a month when the Cascadia subduction zone earthquake hits. Obviously, that's a very long time. Also, Oregon imports all of its fossil fuels. Oregon does not produce fossil fuels. It imports those fossil fuels through a few mechanisms, some of which will be disrupted during an earthquake. And so if you have a diesel generator, that's great, but you need the diesel to be able to run that generator. And batteries just provide the ability, especially with solar, you can recharge the battery if the grid is down for an extended period. Also, not to go on and on here, but if you recall in 2019, after there was the Paradise Fire in California, and Pacific Gas and Electric, PG&E, different from Portland General Electric, one of the biggest investor-owned utilities, and I think the biggest one down in California, they after that fire, when they really got burnt as a corporation for that because they were negligent maintaining their distribution and transmission lines, they caused fires that killed people. And so now they instituted a new policy where they just shut down power if they think they may cause a fire during high fire danger periods. That has also killed people, not as many people, but it is incredibly disruptive. It's incredibly economically disruptive. If you have a business that's agricultural, that requires any kind of refrigeration, where you have perishable goods, there have been studies that businesses in Hood River, for example, if they lost power for 2 weeks, even for just 4 days, could lose millions of dollars. And so the benefits of energy storage are just immense. And also, on top of it, our grid, as we have these really tremendous renewable energy goals to be net zero by 2040 in Oregon, that means installing a whole lot of solar. And the problem that the grids all over the world are encountering is that with transient resources like the sun and the wind, you need to be able to store that energy on a large scale. And there's different technologies to help you to do that. But even consumer-owned home batteries make a little dent that helps provide grid services in a number of ways, not just for that reason, but for other reasons as well. Costs and problems. I would say the biggest problem is the market is not accessible to everybody right now. It does cost thousands of dollars to install a battery, and a battery, one battery will likely not cover all of your electrical needs. You might have just a partial home backup. So you'll select which loads you want to back up, and you'll create a separate electrical loads panel with a separate breaker box, and that will go to your battery. And in an emergency, you might have a refrigerator, an outlet for a computer, and some lights, and anything like a hot tub, whatever, you might just have to do without, unless you want to spend the extra thousands of dollars to get additional batteries. And some people do that. They get 4 to 6 batteries if they can. That can cost a lot of money. So I think that that's the main problem. There's a lot of bright people working on this problem, and obviously the market's at work too. And I expect battery costs to continue to decline precipitously over the next few years. Kathy, will regular lending institutions provide homeowner loans? Any in particular for solar? I assume you're asking. There are banks that provide special financing for solar systems, and it's special in terms of the length of term. Usually matches the expected return and payback of the system. And also there may be a refinancing option after you take advantage of the investment tax credit. And you can refinance at a lower rate after that first year. Some institutions across the country do this. There's one that is just generally highly recommended in our region, and that is Puget Sound Community Credit Union, I believe it is. And there may be others in the area as well. Sometimes you can, in terms of homeowner loans and other ways to finance solar, I wish I were more of an expert and I could speak eloquently right now. That's a great question, but that's the one recommendation I would have. Brian, we've got so many questions. I'm just going to go for a few more minutes, so feel free to stick with us. I'm enjoying this. Brian asks, I need a new roof. How do you coordinate getting a roofing contractor working together with a solar contractor? That's a great question. Some solar contractors will have existing relationships, and that's something that you can ask your contractors when you're getting bids. And if not, I think the best course of action there, if you can't find a contractor that has existing relationships, you can let them know what your needs are and try to form that communication between the two companies. Often solar contractors will want to coordinate with a roofing company and just get it all done at the same time, install the new roof, and then they'll get up on the roof and install the solar right then. And that can have benefits. So if you find a contractor that doesn't even want to talk to a roofing contractor, I would say you can probably find a better solar contractor. Tim, panel outputs vary from 340 to 400 plus watts. Should I get panels with the highest output? Great question. That extra wattage premium may come with an extra dollar premium. And you may find a contractor that, they'll have what they have, and that's what they have. If you have the options to choose from all these different wattages, getting the 340 watts versus the 400 watts, if it costs more to get the 400 watts, it's not like the 340 watt panels are going to become obsolete or be less functional. So I think it comes down to cost and your preference. if you want to show off your 450 watt modules, and that's of value to you and you're willing to pay a little premium for that. Or the case in which it may make sense is if you're space limited on your roof. If you don't have enough space and to cover all of your energy needs, sometimes getting to 100% zero or getting closer, you can pay that extra premium for the higher wattage modules, and that can help you save space. Travis, I'm looking into FAFCO's Cool PV. It is a water-cooled panel that also provides hot water. Do you know if there are other manufacturers with similar products? That's a great question. I've seen that product and I don't know much about it. I know that, here's what I'll say, is that solar heating, solar thermal heating is not new. It's been around for a long time. And that's separate from what you're talking about. But solar thermal heating, where you put a pipe on the roof and you paint it black and you run ethylene glycol or water through it, and then it heats that. That used to be really popular, and we're finding now that PV systems are the clear choice because they are more economical. However, this water-cooled panel is different from solar heating and it's different from PV. It's the combination of the two. And it exploits the fact that PV panels produce heat when they convert sunlight into electricity. And so it not only cools the panel, because the panel then operates at a higher efficiency in colder temperatures, but it uses that heat to provide you with an additional cogeneration product, which is heat, which you can use to gain an additional energy benefit. The one thing I would be cautious of, and I don't know enough about this product to say much about it, but the one thing I would think about is solar PV, an extremely simple system. Solar thermal, where you're running fluid, is a plumbing system, and it's more complex. And so I don't see this product being installed frequently, and that's the only reason that makes me want to question it, whether it provides enough economic value for it to make sense. However, if you think it's cool, it might be worth exploring. Teresa, do the panels need to be cleaned? It is typically recommended that panels are cleaned at least once a year, especially if you're next to a dusty area like a construction zone. However, in the Pacific Northwest, especially in the Willamette Valley, the rain does a great job. You may want to spray with a hose, or you can, pay someone to go up there, however much they charge you, $50, $100 once a year to clean them. So it could be free, it could be no maintenance at all if you get enough rain, but it shouldn't be a huge issue either way. Brian, do you have any advice about buying outright versus loan versus leasing solar system installation costs? I'm definitely gonna use the recording of this Q&A session because you guys have really covered all the bases. The advice, financing is there. If you are buying, financing is a great tool to help you if you can't afford the upfront capital cost. And it can be, the payments on a loan can be as cheap as like a gym membership. And so it's really makes it accessible if you don't have that upfront capital. If you do, I would say buy it outright because then you won't have to pay the interest on loan. The leasing option, there are many contractors will do one or the other. They'll either sell you a system that you buy outright, or they'll do leasing, and that's your only option with them. Leasing, again, it's a way to avoid upfront cost. You get some marginal benefit. You don't have to pay back any interest on a loan, but you will never get the full economic benefit of your solar system. And also make sure that the company you're leasing from is a good company, and they're going to handle maintenance when that needs to happen and things like that. Melissa, what are the downsides of going solar? It's a great question, and it's one that's, yeah, just generally speaking, there are downsides in terms of lack of access to solar. I firmly believe that solar has tremendous value socially, economically. Ways in which I would say make sure, yeah, if you did not do your homework, you didn't find a good contractor. Again, there are great ways to do this. Energy Trust of Oregon, Trade Allies, that's a sure bet system to finding a great contractor. But if you found someone who, wasn't, I mean, there may be risk there, just kind of speculating. I don't, it's an incredibly broad question. I don't know how to answer it. I would say, yeah, the downsides of solar are so minimal, and the benefits so great of solar energy compared to how else we produce electricity, that yeah, I'm happy to answer more specific questions, but I'm not really sure how to answer a broad question. Ken, regarding the federal tax incentive, if the next bill doesn't pass, when will the 26% incentive expire? That's a great question. And I believe that it goes down to 22%. I should know this. It's either next year or the following year. And then I believe it would be the following year after that it goes, it would be set to expire. It's been reinstituted by Congress several times. So this bill might not be the last chance to restart it, but it is a good chance. Anonymous, how does one get equipment manufacturer to honor their warranty if your installation contractor goes out of business? Great. Okay, yeah. So you're asking about a product warranty, but your installer goes out of business. I believe that you can just contact the manufacturing company and work with a distribution company to actually get the replacement product to you, or a new, because it will involve installation. You'll probably want to contact another reputable installation company. Your solar companies, though 10 years ago when the industry was not as mature, solar companies did come and go. Nowadays, there are a lot of strong companies, and especially the highly rated Trade Allies from Energy Trust are not really going anywhere, almost certainly. So I think it's unlikely that if you choose a contractor that would be an issue. But I believe that another contractor may be interested in servicing your request, because they would be A, paid for labor, and B, it can be a good way to find a good customer for referrals, if you are a happy camper. We're getting towards the end here. I'm going to go back up to the top, and looks like Ari's typing an answer to one of them. Can the federal tax credit be used over a couple of years? Again, I'm not a tax professional, but I believe that yes, you have, I think it's 3 years, but don't quote me out on that. A solar contractor will be able to answer that question. But again, a tax professional is the most official advice you'll get about the federal tax credit. I plan to get a loan to cover the cost of the system. I've been told that credit unions have low interest loans for solar systems. Can you say more about that? I already mentioned a little bit in response to another question about how that works. So I'll go ahead and skip that one. And then can photovoltaic arrays be installed in snow zones such as government camp? Great question. Yeah, it can be installed. You should not have issues anywhere in Oregon installing solar based on snow zone, especially. The engineer at the solar installation company, the system designer will know the snow load requirements of your area, so that shouldn't be an issue. And then finally, this last one, what happens if a contractor who sold me the contract and installed the system goes out of business? In this case, who honors the warranty? I think we already answered that previously. And I know we have some questions in the chat that we may not have gotten to, but I'm going to go ahead, since we are 25 past the hour, just wrap up here. But that was seriously the best Q&A session we've had. So thank you, everybody, for joining. And I think, John, you mentioned that I can just close out here, but also if you wanted to just say anything.
No, just a big thank you. And go ahead and close out. We appreciate the presentation tonight.
All right. Thanks so much. And I'm going to be sending out a recording to everybody. So go ahead and check your email. And please join us tomorrow for our annual meeting. Good night, everybody.